Morning everyone, I am Isa Sabihon Pangulima from BSED Math 2. For this morning, we will discuss the chapter 1 of the Assessment of Learning 1, which is the concept and relevance of assessment. Okay, the overview: assessment is a vital in the curriculum development process. It is used to determine students' learning needs, monitor their progress, and examine their performance against the identified student learning outcomes. And the purpose of assessment in education, it helps the students to demonstrate their learning, provide feedback on the errors they've been making, and help provide opportunities to better their performance with each assessment. And in assessment, it is implemented at different phases of instruction. First is the before or the pre-assessment. Second is the during or formative assessment, and after instruction, which is summative. It is how to test the knowledge of a student. And also, the learning outcome or the objective for this topic is the students are expected to compare and contrast assessment, testing, and evaluation. Okay, measurement comes from the old French word which is mesure, means limit or quantity. It is the measurement of the knowledge or the ability of a students. And to obtain this measurement, the teachers they use different activities or different techniques and how they can measure their students' learning capabilities. And to measure the knowledge of the students, they gibot nila like test, oral presentation, written reports, portfolios, and rubrics to obtain pertinent information. Among these, tests are the most pervasive. Since testing is the most pervasive, testing is a formal systematic procedure for gathering information. A test is a tool comprised of a set of questions administered during the fixed period of time under comparable condition for all students. And also, there are different types of tests. First is according to mode of response. Second is according to ease of quantification of response. Third is according to the mode of administration. Fourth, according to the test constructor. Fifth, according to mode of interpreting results. Last is according to nature of answer. And according to mode of response, it is classified into three, which is the oral test, written test, and performance test. When we say oral test, it is viva voice. Answers are spoken. Like we do in a classroom, we do a oral test to to measure kana makita na to kung unsay kaya buhaton sa isa ka estudyante. And as a future educators, kinahanglan ta mangita og techniques kung paunsa nato ma-examine ang strength of weaknesses ato ang mga estudyante. And also, written tests, activities wherein students either select or provide a response to a prompt. Kini siya kanang bitong like kanang magsulat kuno daw tag essay kuno. Okay, magsulat daw tag essay tas mo itong submit sa to ang teacher. That is a written test. Same ta og question tanan pero lahi man tag thoughts, lahi man ta og like idea kung paunsa nato na siya buhaton, paunsa nato na siya patason, di ba? And belong siya sa according to mode of response. And the last, which is the performance test. Activities that require students to demonstrate their skills or ability to perform specific actions. And napo dira which is called also kay kuan performance assessment. Kay di ba na may estudyante gyud nga weak siya sa written test pero naa siya ikuan sa performance test kanang kaya niya mag-perform kaysa sa mag-written kasi mas kusog ang iyahang or mas paspas mo gana ang iyahang brain sa performance, mas dali siya na ay idea kaysa sa written test nga hinay iyahang pangutok nga like mas pangutok so hinay ang iyahang mo process ang iyahang brain kung paunsa niya ansiran kung paunsa niya solbaron to iyahang giato ba nga test questionnaires. And so next type of test, which is according to ease of quantification response, which is also objective test and subjective test. when we say objective test can be corrected and quantified quite easily. So, kini siya, it includes true or false or multiple choice, competition, and matching items. These items, the test items have single or specific convergent response. So, nala siya specific answer, no? Isa lang ang ihang answer. So, dili siya objective test. So, kanang dili ka pwede mo kanang mo pagawa sa imong own knowledge. So, when we say objective test, ang hinumduman is isa ra ang ihang exact answer. Objective test elicits a varied response. So, pwede pwede ganang correct imong answer, lahi-lahi mong answer pero puro mo correct og answer. Ganang lahi-lahi inyong thoughts. So, just like essay, kanang essay, dili man na siya isa lang ang answer sa essay. So, daghan na siya. So, belong na siya sa subjective test. Okay, again, when we say objective test, it refers only to one answer. When we say subjective test, it is varied response of a student. So, lahi tag mga answers diha. The third classification of test, which is the mode of administration. It is also classified into two, which is the individual test and the group test. When we say individual test, it is given to one person at a time. This is the individual cognitive or achievement test administered to gather extensive information about each student's cognitive functioning and her ability to process and perform specific tasks. Sa individual test, we can recognize the weaknesses and strength of our students. And this can also the testing can aid identify learners who are struggling in reading or the dyslexia. Sa math, dyscalculia. Sa writing, dysgraphia. Motor skills, dyspraxia. Language, dysphasia. Or visual or auditory process. And aside from assessment data obtained from a wide array of given tasks, the teacher could also observe individual student closely during the test to gather additional information. Kasi in individual test, we can recognize sa students kung unsa ihang kaya o dili niya kaya. Kasi diha na to ma-determine nga mas okay ang individual before ta mag-group test. Kasi individual, so from the beginning, di ba, we should recognize kung unsay ability or kakayanan sa usa ka estudyante. When we say group test, it is administered to a class of students or group of examining simultaneously. So, mahulog ni siya og brainstorming. Like, giving of knowledge. Masyag, muhatag og knowledge ang isa ka groupmates, sa isa ka groupmates. So, lahat ng i-combine. So, dito sila makabuo og like, answer kung paunsa nila masulbad ang ilahang task. And also, this test is usually objective and responses are more or less restricted. Kasi, dili naman nimo siya, ang group test kasi, dili nimo ma-identify on say weakness o strength sa isa ka estudyante. Kasi, ang mas mulabaw ana nga kuan is, katong mga hilig og public speaking, so sila jud ang mas ang mas maklaro sa isa ka grupo. So, luoy pud ang uban, dili nimo sila ma-recognize. So, mo na siya ang classifications according to mode of administration, the individual test, and the group test. So, next is type of test is according to test constructor, which is the standardized test and non-standardized test. Okay, standardized tests are prepared by specialists who are versed in the principles of assessment. So, according to Miller, Lin, and Gronland, 2019, enumerated the 4 properties that different standardized tests from classroom or informal tests: learning outcomes and content measure, quality of test items, reliability and administration of scoring interpretation. So, mo na siyang na-classified siya into 2 ang test constructor. Standardized tests, there are available manuals and guides to aid administration interpretation of test result. Because of high validity and reliability, they can use for a long period of time provided they are used for whatever they were intended for. So, ang results ani, mahimo siyang general consist ra ang iyang results. So we all know nga naay mga teachers nga nagagamit sa standardized test kasi labi nag mga same na ang kinahanglan nga same ang questionnaire sa tanan, so mo nila ginagamit, which is ang standardized test. Kasi standardized test consists of multiple choice items used to distinguish between students, and results of the standardized test serve as an indicator of instructional effectiveness and a reflection of a school's performance. So they have only one question to all of the students. So na general na sad siya. So whatever kung unsay level sa imong learnings diha, pag mao na siya ipagawas nga test, so you need to study and you need to answer the problem. And the non-standardized tests are prepared by teachers who may not be adept the principles of test construction. So naay typo diha, B na siya. And also kini siya, teachers made tests are constructed haphazardly due to limited time and lack of opportunity to pre-test items or pilot test. Compared to standardized tests, the quality of items is uncertain, or if known, they are generally lower. Non-standardized tests are usually administered to one or few classes to measure subject or course achievement. So, dire is depende na sa teacher kung pila ka items ang iyang ihatag na test sa iyang mga students. Wala siya limit, dili sad siya same sa standardized test. And kining non-standardized test is siya na bahala kung unsa iyang i-question dito based sa katong inyohang gi-discuss before. Kay ang uban kasi pag standardized test is lalom na kay siya mga words, di ba? Naay uban dito nga wala din napil sa tong discuss pero naa dito nga topic. So ang kanila yung nakanindot sa non-standardized test is unsa to gi-discuss inyong teacher, possible mausad to iyang ipatest sa inyo ha, to test your knowledge para ana nga related ana nga subject. And also, for the non-standard test, standardized test is test items are not really examined for validity. Dili siya same sa standardized test nga valid siya, like ginagamit na siya balik-balik. Unlike sa non-standardized test, bas hindi ay karon na niya gamiton sa teacher, dili na niya gamiton next school year. Kulahi na po dihang i-test para sa mga students. So, di ba kalahian ra kayo sila. Kaya ang non-standardized test is pwede balikon nimo siya, dili nimo siya balikon and it is not valid, or wala na siya validity and reliability test. Not same as a standardized test is gi-validate siya, then katong reliability test, and before siya usa siya nga pwede nimo gamiton and pwede pa nimo gamiton in the next generation. Next classification or the next type of test is according to mode of interpreting result. And it is classified into two, which is tests that yield norm reference interpretations and tests that allow criterion reference interpretation. Okay, sa first classification, which is the test that yield norm reference interpretations, are evaluate instruments that measures a student's performance in relation to the performance of a group on the same test. Okay. When we say norm reference test is wala siya limit sa imuhang, wala siya limit or wala siya maximum minimum sa imuhang score nga dapat kinira ang imuhang kuhaon, dapat diha rakutob ang scores nimo, din dapat mulabaw ka diha. Ang yield norm reference test kasi is depende kung unsay outcome sa performance isa ka estudyante, and didto ma-rank sila by their performance. As in a criterion, describe its students' performance against an agreed upon or pre-established criterion level of performance. So naa siya kana bitong minimum nga kailangan mulapas ka diha, og dili ka mulapas diha is wala nimo na naabot ang ilahang expectation or ang ilahang giset nga standard. Kasi in criterion na sila criteria gibutang like same sa karon, kinahanglan nga ma-honor ka kung imuhang average is 90, 'di ba? With honors na siya. Before, bisan pag wala ka sa norm reference test kasi before, sa before nga ranking is matawag to siya norm reference test. Kasi nagbase lang ang first honor or ang ranking is sa kinsay taas o grado sa inyo ha. So sa karon nga education system or ang ilang ranking system is nagabase na siya sa criterion na sila limit or na sila minimum nga 90 usa pa ka ma-honor. So mao na siya kalahian. Ang norm reference test is wala sila nag-set og standard. Ang criterion is na sila gi-set nga standard na kinahanglan nimo achieve. And the next is type of test is the nature or according to nature of answer. First is the personality test. Second is the achievement test. Third is the intelligence test, sociometric test, and the trade or vocational test. When we say personality test, a test designed for assessing some aspects of an individual personality. So it was developed in the 1920s, initially intended to aid the selection of personnel in the armed forces. Since then, quite a number of personalities were developed. So in this part it is evaluating of the personality of individual. So like to determine the strength and weaknesses and develop the activities that can be arranged for students. So diri personality test kabalo man jud ta nga na strength o weakness ang isa ka estudyante. So sa personality test diha ani mo ma-recognize mo to kung gingon ang ilang strength and weakness. So sa ilahang weakness diha ta mag-focus kung unsaon nato sila pag-improve. Kasi as a teacher, so kinahanglan nato na siya ikuan. As a future educators, kinahanglan nato sulbaron ang ilahang weakness. Kailangan nato sila nga ipa-overcome ana kaya ma-improve ang ilahang knowledge. So, di ba, ang personality test, mag-test siya mismo sa imong kagalingon, dili sa laing tao. Mismo, bisan kita, makatest ta sa akong kagalingon, ay, dili na ko siya kaya. So, unsay angay na ko buhaton para mahimo na ko ni siya, di ba? Nga na, we find solutions kung paunsa nato i-overcome ang ato ang mga weakness. And the next is the achievement test. So, achievement test measures students' learning as a result of instruction and training experiences. When used summatively, they serve as a basis promotion to the next grade. So same to us nga achievement na to ang naabot na pud ta og second year. And in contrast, aptitude test determines a student's potential to learn and do new tasks. So masyag ko another challenge na pud sa to if kaya ba nato siya. So the question is there a relationship between an aptitude and assessment? If an aptitude test is administered prior to instruction and results of an achievement test are obtained after instruction, then it can be investigated whether aptitude causes achievement. So, basin di ay. So, we all know nga, kanang koan, like, kanang magpa-quiz na ay direction or instruction gihatag si teacher. So, kita nga mga estudyante ana is, maminaw ta syempre, di ba? Dahil mag-answer ta. So, pinaagi nga na-achieve ni mo is niagi tag aptitude. Like, mo siya ang cause nga nung na-achieve ni mo. So, therefore, na ay relationship si aptitude o si achievement. So, before ni mo na-achieve, niagi ka dito sa aptitude nga, aptitude test nga, prior siya to instruction and to results of achievement test. The next is the intelligence test. Measures learners' innate intelligence or mental ability. So, intelligence tests have continually evolved because of the efforts to accurately measure intelligence. And intelligence tests contain items on verbal comprehension, quantitative, and abstract reasoning, among others, in accordance with some recognized theory of intelligence. So, di ba, no, kanang iya gid ta og level of learning. Kita mga estudyante, kita tanan, dili lang ka estudyante, including sa ato ang mga professionals nga mga workers nga lahi gid level of learnings. Pero pwede pa na to siya i-improve kung low learner ta, naay mga naay mga activity siguro or activity baka ang ba mga lessons or activities nga kinahanglan nato buhaton aron ma-improve ang ato ang learning level. So moto diba sa ato ang sa ato ang CPE before is ang learning sa isa ka estudyante is dili siya maundang, or ang learning sa isa ka tawo dili siya maundang as long as buhi pa ka ning kalibutan na. So bisa pagtigwang na ka magkat-on ra gihapon ka na ra gihapon kay ma-learn nga mga bag-ong knowledge nga wala nimo na-learn before sa bata pa ka. So, the intelligence test taps into three dependent aspects of intelligence, which is the analytic, practical, and creative. So, mo na to siya ang intelligence test. Measures a learner's innate intelligence or mental ability sa kakayahanan sa isa ka estudyante. So, kabalo man jud ta nga dili tanan nga pasim og ka bright, so bright ra kay sila. So, kaya pa na to mapas oy bas hindi ay kulang lang gid ta og time magtuon or wala lang gid ta dili lang ta motivated mag-study og taman. So, mo na siya ang intelligence test. Next is the sociometric test. Measure interpersonal relationship in a social group. Sociometry is a way of measuring relationships between people, and sociometric tests can discover, describe, and evaluate social status and structure, and can measure the acceptance or rejection felt between sports and group. The next is the trade or vocational test. Assesses an individual's knowledge, skills, competence in a particular occupation. A trade test is used to assess the proficiency and skills of an individual in any number skills of trades. The next is the function of testing. First, instructional function. B, administrative function. C is research and evaluation. And D is the guidance functions. So, instructional functions is test facilitate the clarification of meaningful learning objectives. Test provide a means of feedback to the instructor and the student. Test can motivate learning. Test can facilitate learning. Tests are useful means of learning. First is katong test facilitate the clarification of meaningful learning objectives. So when a teacher constructing a test, so it is the teacher are reminded to go back to the learning objective. So basin di nag-imo siya og questions diha tapos dili na related sa inyong topic. So paunsa ma-answer sa estudyante. So if dito siya magsunod sa ihang objectives, they are committed to this teaching, learning activities and assessment tasks provided mutual support. So dito sila nga dito niya ma-recognize nga ang estudyante is nakabalo sa iyang or nakasabot sa iyang discussion if naka-answer sa iyang test which is related sa iyang objectives. Second is test provide a means of feedback to instructor and students. So they can be used for self-diagnosis. So students can assess their own learning and performance. Test results guide teachers in adjusting their pedagogical practice to match students' learning style. So, basin di mingon ng teacher, dako na ko ganggo, so dapat lalom na ako ang kuan, or layo na kay kog naabtan, so dapat lisod na akong ipa-question sa imong mga estudyante. What if yung mga estudyante is mga elementary day, so unsay alamag nila ana? Diba? So, kita mga teacher mag-adjust sa student or sa level of learning sa to ang mga students and sa ilahang styles. Kay, basin di ay, mora hinungdan nga, na gini po yung nasabtan ng imong estudyante kay ang imuhang gipa-question sa ila is pang college na. Inya imong mga estudyante elementary or high school pa. So, unsa may knowledge na. So, dapat stick gihapon ka dito sa imong objectives kung unsa imong gi-discuss sa ilaha. Para makuha nimo ang feedback sa imong mga estudyante or makuha nimo ang level nga or unsa ba nasabtan ba nila ang imong kuan, ang imong discussions, di ba? And the impact of tests on teaching and learning is called washback. The effect may be beneficial or harmful as the teachers and learners tend to tailor instructional activities and learning process to demand of the test. So, moto siya nga, kinahanglan yun na to feedback para kita mga estudyante mo feedback punta sa to mga instructor nga, ma'am, dili naman ni related sa to ang topic. Nga na, di ba? So, kita pod mga future instructor or future students, future teachers, kita mo feedback punta sa mga estudyante na to, class, kini, ning ani, dapat inyong masabtan kung unsay objective sa tong topic. So, stick lang ta sa objective sa future educators. Dili na ta mo lapas dito kay di man sa ingon nga kuan, sa what if na, wala ni alam imong mga estudyante, imong gi-discuss about imong gi-quiz about sa science. So, unsa pa may na-answer sa mga estudyante, di ba, wala na. So, mo to siya. So, the test can motivate learning. So, as research has shown, when done right, testing is an effective way to support learning. Taking tests as well as engaging in activities before and after can produce better facts. So, nagpa-test ka after sa imong discussion. So, syempre, ang estudyante, mayroon ka nga, at last, we will have a test. Yung mga estudyante, maminaw, Jod, so, motivate sila mo cut-on sa one discussion, kaya naman ka ipatest after. So, ang test can motivate learning. So, dapat niya na po, aware na may mga estudyante. Kaya base nyo niya, nangatulog na sila. Pero, actually, ang boring nga klase is depende ra po na siya kung diun sa pagdala sa isa ka teacher. Kaya what if boring gid po ay nag-discuss inyohang teacher, so walay nasabtan na nimuhang mga estudyante. So, kung naaman gali, gamay ra to sila, kasi syempre, kato sila tong mga estudyante nga, maminaw jud kayo sa imuha. Pero we all know nga estudyante na agit apulan usahay nga mga tulog sa klase. Di ba? And next is test can facilitate learning. So diri makita nimo ang knowledge isa ka estudyante makita nimo ang knowledge isa ka estudyante nga naa siya na recall sa imong discussion before ka nagpa-test. And mato siya gitawag og retrieval practice. It is a strategy of recalling the facts, concept, or event from memory or in order to enhance learning. Kasi, it helps us understand, or it helps the students to understand what the facts they may not know, so they can allocate the future study accordingly. Future study time accordingly. So, the test, di ba, measure, makita nimo nga, naagi din na sabtan ng estudyante gikan sa iyang i-studyhan. So, dito to ginatawag na to og retrieval or practice retrieval. Retrieval practice or practice retrieval mo sa to siya ang term. And makita nimo dito nga kaya din sa estudyante or na-facilitate ang learning abilities sa estudyante nga maka-answer siya sa test na gihatag sa isa ka teacher, di ba? Next is tests are useful means of overlearning. Overlearning means continued study, review, interaction, or practice of the same material after concepts and skills has been mastered. Preparation for scheduled tasks induce overlearning, while overlearning helps in retention or dissipates over time. So, kinahanglan ang test kasi matawag siya overlearning. Kasi wala mo'y dili given ang question. So, pag given kasi ang question, dili siya matawag og overlearning. Kaya maura ang imuhang tun-an katong gihapanghatag nga question. So, syempre, mag-test man mo, so, ang gihatag lang sa iyo is topic. So, matawag siya overlearning, kay ang tanang inyong ang tanang gi-discuss ninyo na is inyong gitun-an. Pero, we all know nga, dili tanan diha is magawa sa inyong test. So, mo na siya gihatawag nga useful means of overlearning. Pero, mas okay na sagto para nakay knowledge, ana nga topic. So, mas okay na mag-overlearning ka as long as related siya sa imuhang magamit nimo siya in the future. Next is administrative function. Tests provided a mechanism of quality control. Tests facilitate better classification and placement decisions. Tests can increase the quality of select decisions, and tests can be useful means of accreditation, mastery, or certification. When we say tests provided a mechanism of quality control, through tests, a school can determine the strength and weaknesses of its curricula. Administrator can then devise ways to improve outcome and assessment implement of the check for improvement. So, kini, sa basic education, na sila ginatawag nga katong mga NAT, National Achievement Test, or dito baka, di ba kato siya is, dito, mag-scoring kasi to. So, nato siya ay, mahulog og evaluation na makita dito silang, administrator nga, ay, made og improvement ni nga eskwelahan. Kung sa nahitabo ani, nga nung walay learning sa ubang estudyante. So, dito, makapangita sila og solution kung paunsa nila ma-improve ang learning sa isa ka estudyante, sa mailahang mga estudyante. So, in that way, na if ma-improve man ganito siya, so effective ang gibuhat sa administrator nga technique. Next is test facilitate better classification and placement decision. Test results allow administrator to group students according to their level of ability. Through a classification system, schools can assign or transfer students to a gifted or remedial program. So, kini, mas okay siya kay mabilong ang isa ka estudyante based sa ilahang level of learning. Kasi pag i-generalize kasi nimo siya, luoy ang mga low learners. Paunsa man sila ma-improve ang ilahang learning kung biya kaayo ang ilahang level of knowledge. So, mas okay itang i-classified sila according sa ilahang level of ability. So, katong mga kuan is ganyan sila remedial program para makaapas pud sila. Pero, as a teacher, trabaho sa nato ni nga improve ang learning, or as a future educators, is trabaho nato nga tabangan ang mga basic ang mga estudyante sa basic education nga ma-improve ang ilahang learning level of ability or level of learnings. Kasi para pod dili sila magkalisod, inigabot nila tertiary kay we all know nga instructor na ang atong kaatubang sa college. So mo instruct na sila kung silang tun-an. Dili na same sa basic education nga gidiscuss pa diha sa mga kuan murag siya one-on-one or point to point ang gihisgutan sa basic education, di ba? So, luoy po ng estudyante. So, kita nga mga future educators, trabaho gyapon nato nga tabangan nato nga mga estudyante ma-improve ang ilahang learning ability. Next is test can increase the quality of select decision. So, in using tests for clarification purposes, schools can then select students for specific programs. This is true when admitting students for senior high school or college. Through testing, a teacher can select students who would benefit, for instance, in tutorial classes or remedial programs. So, test can increase quality of selections. Dire, pinaagi sa test, like naakay choices sa mga imuhang mga estudyante kung kinsay maka-benefit. So, luoy po nang dili ma-benefit, mura gihapon to, panabangan gihapon na to sila, di ba? Para dito po sila makuan sa, basin maka-remedial day sila sa ilang exam, silang quiz, kaya ma-improve man na ilang knowledge pinaagi, di ba? Pinaagi sa mga activities, like test, o di ba? So, i-motivate na to mga estudyante nga kaya nila na, and tuon lang jud, di ba? Test can increase quality of selection and decisions. So, dire, maka-decide ang teacher or administration baka administrate sa ilang schools nga kinsa may angay, like di ba naatay koan mga quiz bee, so kinsa to maayo ani, di ba pinaagi sa test makaselect sila og participants. So kato pinaagi sa test na sila best decision nga para ipanglaban sa ilaha school para sa mga contest. So more gihapon pinaagi ra gyapon sa test. So, di ba no, ang test grabe siya, dako kay siya tabang para sa mga teachers kung paunsa nila ma-recognize ang kakayanan sa isa ka estudyante. So, next is test can be useful means of accreditation, mastery, or certification. Test provides a means of certifying knowledge and skills. In K-12 basic education curriculum, a senior high school students who completely a Technical Vocational Livelihood Track or TVL in grade 12 may obtain a National Certificate Level 2 or NC2 provided that he or she passes the Competency-Based Assessment of Technical Education and Skill Development Authority or TESDA. So, this certification will enable students to land jobs after high school. Another is the licensure exam for teachers conducted by the Professional Regulation Commission, mandated by Republic Act 7836. So, ang test, so, diri gyapon, so, di ba guys, gut na siya nga, TVL. Kinitong strand sa senior high school, and sa grade 12, you can receive NC2 if nahumani mo ang ginatawag nila o kuan. Katong activity nga ginabuhat nila sa schools or sa, like for example sa HE or home economics. Di ba ma-assign na sila sa different places kay kato si tawag ani ha. Basta nato term na ginatawag nila nga diri ka na assign. So maayo silang feedback or naay mo observe sa inyo ha kung paunsa ninyo gi-execute ang inyong part para mahimo ninyo ang inyong activity. So, after that, if 30 days ata yon 30 days, parang 1 month nila nga training to, kay, kan kasi na, part kasi na sa ilahang strand na kinahanglan nila buhaton. So, moto, after ng 30 days, makuha nila tong NC2. So, ang NC2 is, dako gihapon kayo siya, certificate na siya, di ba? Na-master na nila ang ilahang task or ilahang skills is na-develop pod. Kaya, syempre, na another learning sa pod to kay gi-execute naman nila ang ilahang trabaho. So, test can be useful means of accreditation, mastery, or certification. Next is letter C, research and evaluation. Tests are useful for program evaluation and research. Tests are utilized in studies that determine effectiveness of new pedagogical techniques. Researches on teaching and learning in innovations like effectiveness of technology-enhanced learning, tablet computing, and flipped classroom are carried out using tests and other assessment techniques to collect data. And evaluators also utilize assessment data to determine the impact and success for their programs. So, bisan sa to ang kuan, way back sa senior high school, natay baby thesis kung ginatawag nila or practical research. So, di ba, nag-involve gihapon to siya og test since nagbuhat ta og test questionnaires ato para sa program evaluation. Para sa kanang bitong ipang paansira nato sa mga estudyante baka ha og kinsa ato ang responders ato nga kuan research. So pinaagi sa test makakuha ta og mga information, makakuha ta og what we call this one, mga results kung unsay mga results about ana niyang issue or about ana niya nga lihok ning ana, di ba? So pinaagi sa test gamit gihapon kaayo siya sa research and evaluation. So halos di ba tanan more gitestingan pod ang ato ang ability nga kaya ba kaha nato ni. Sa guidance and function, tests can be valued in diagnosing an individual's special aptitudes and abilities. The aim of guidance is to enable each individual to understand or her abilities and interests and develop them so that he or she can take advantage for educational, vocational, and personal opportunities. So in school, the guidance department evaluates learners' scholastic attitude, achievement, interest, and personality. By giving intelligence tests, so aptitude tests and personality inventories along with the interviews and counseling sessions, a guidance counselor can help students to develop their study and their time management skills and choose which program to study to take and select a career path to follow. So, guidance. So, ang test, like for example, so, gitest ka og kuan, which is same to as, gitest ta sa English. So, weak ta sa English. What if weak ta sa English o gitest ta sa math? So, dito ka sa math. So, dito ka ning choose sa imuhang dalan sa math. So, mo-guide sila sa imuhang nga naakay kakayanan sa math. So, why not na like, i-challenge nimo yung self na, sige, mo-try ka ni nga mo try ka ani nga pamaagi or mo try ka ani nga dalan nga diri imong career kay diri man ka maayo. So di ba mo ikuan siya like sa individual special aptitude and abilities nato sa mismong kaugalingon nato. So mo guide lang sila sa ato nga or naay someone nga mo advise mo kabalo man kung kaya nimo ni gipakita naman nimo bali ikaw na lang ang kulang, ikaw na lang sa imong kaugalingon nga dili pa man guro nako na kaya. No, dapat kay positive nga positive nga panghuna-huna nga I know I can do it and I will do it. So we will try and try until hindi naman you die, until you success. So di ba wala may bayad mo try. Pag ingon ana nga kabalo ka nga kaya nako ni. Kaya moingon nay makaingon sa imuha nga huy nakita ante kag potential ana kabalo kung kaya nimo na. So, di ba, motivation ang kulang sa tua and also ato ang self-confidence. The third is the assessment. So, di ba, manata sa measurement, sa testing, and the testing, daghan tog type of test, di ba, nandito. And now, we will go on assessment. Assessment comes from the Latin word assidere, which means to sit beside a judge. This implies that assessment is tied up with evaluation. Okay, assessment defined by Miller, Lin, and Rowland in 2009 as any method utilized to gather information about students' performance. So, di-assess nila ang student on how they recognize kung the ability, learning ability of a students, di ba? Because of assessment, dito nila na-differentiate ang estudyante nga ang ilahang level of learning. Included na diri ang test, moto siya. Ang test is part also siya sa assessment part is a form of assessment ang test. So, however, the term testing appears have negative connotation among educators and somewhat threatening to the learners. Thus, the term assessment is preferably used. So, mas okay ang term nga assessment kaysa sa testing kay mara daw siya og dili sana na negative connotation ba sa mga educators ang word nga testing. So mas okay ang assessment, like i-assess nila ang estudyante. And there are also two types or two classification of assessment, which is the nature assessment and purpose of assessment. Nature assessment consists of two, which is the maximum performance and the typical performance. So, maximum performance is achieved when the learners are motivated to perform well. So, assessment results from maximum performance manifest what students can do at their level best, their abilities and achievements. In this category, students are encouraged to aim for a higher score. And of course, there are factors that affect students' optimal performance, like noise and other distractions. Since the teacher have a direct control to over-testing environment, they can take action reducing or eliminating such factors. So, maximum performance asks the person to do his or her best to solve one or more problems. So, kinahanglan katong kuan gid ba kanang mag-aim pa siya og higher sa iyang ability, sa iyang kakayanan kay mo na siya ang maximum performance. Ang typical performance, this include the attitude, interest, personality inventories, observation techniques, and peer appraisals. So, ang typical performance assessment determines what a learner will do under a circumstances. So, murag choice niya nga dili man ko ganana na kung kuan na siya nga dili man ko ganana na so dili na ako nabuhaton. Mara na siya ang typical type ra ba nimo buhaton or kana bitang bet nimo buhaton ang isa ka activity usa pa ka mabuhat. Not unlike sa maximum performance is mura kag mo go. Sige lang kag go. Nga na bitaw. Ang typical performance is gadepende ra pud siya sa imuha kung unsa bay buhaton nimo. So mo to ang kalainan nila sa maximum and typical performance of a nature of assessment. Next is ang purpose of assessment. The purpose of assessment is classified into three, which are the assessment of learning or AFL, assessment as learning AAL, assessment of learning AOL. So, tulo sila ang nakalainan ra is kanang nasa tunga. Okay. So assessment for learning is an approach to teaching and learning that creates feedback which is then used to improve students' performance. Assessment for learning, dirito nga like i-assess sa isa ka teacher ang students, and after nila mohimo sa activities mohatag og feedback ang teacher para naay improvement ang bata. So next activity nga ilahang buhaton. And also maka-adjust ang teacher sa iyang teaching method and strategies to support learning sa isa ka estudyante. And they can decide whether there is a need to differentiate instruction or designs more appropriate learning activities to clarify and consolidate students' knowledge, understanding, and skills. Like for example, sa assessment for learning is ang written assignments, concept maps, focus questions, pre-test. So, diha is makakuha ng teacher nga, maka-analyze siya nga, need niya mag-adjust kay basin na mubo pa kayo ang level of learning sa ka estudyante. So, dili pa ka siya kapas ato. So, para ma-improve ang learning sa isa ka estudyante is ma-adjust sa gamay ang teacher para ma-acquire sa isa ka estudyante to. And after that, pwede siya mubalik dito kung ma-improve na ang learning ability sa isa ka bata. Next is assessment as learning. So, involves students monitoring and gathering information about their own learning to think about their personal learning habits and how they can adjust their learning strategies to achieve their goals. It involves metacognitive processes like reflection and self-regulation to allow students to utilize their strength and work. And students are responsible and accountable for their own learning and self-peer assessment rubrics because learners could also it is important also to assess their own learning. How they can teacher is only to guide them to improve their learnings. Pero mismo silang kaugalingon panabangan sa niya iyang kaugalingon para ma-improve ang iyang learning. Siya mismo mo assess pud sa iyang kaugalingon nga kinahanglan makaya nako ni, kinahanglan mag-set ka goals para maabot nimo ni. And you need to gather more information about or about sa imong gusto nga i-discuss or about sa imong gusto may balaan para ikaw pod mismo panabangan nimo kaugalingon. Dili lang kay ang tawo nag-interesado para tabangan ka, di ba? That is assessment as learning. Next is the assessment of learning or AOL. Is a formal assessment of what a learner has learned by the conclusion of the chapter, module, or course, etc. And it is a summative and done at the end of the unit, task, or period or process. Its purpose to provide evidence of a student's level of achievement in relation to curricular outcomes. And also, the example of the unit test or ang ilahang giingon nga formal assessment is ang kanang summative test nga ginabuhat nga ginapabuhat sa teacher sa iyang mga estudyante para iyang may balaan nga kini is naa siya naay learnings nakuha gikan sa discussion, di ba? And also, evaluative feedback on their students is used for grading, evaluation, and reporting purposes. So dito mo siya ang mga formal assessment nga ginabuhat sa teacher para sa mga learner nga na sila makatunan ana nga chapter, ana nga lesson. So, di ba? So, AOL provides the foundation for decision on students' placement and promotion. So, dito, ma-recognize mo sa inyong teacher nga kini siya, na siya wide knowledge ani or na siya na siya nag-gather ng mga information lain, dili lang kay siya nag-focus lang ani. So, formal ang assessment of learning. Again, assessment for learning is kini siya tong naa ang teacher mo guide sa toa, naa ang teacher nga mag-adjust para natin makatunan, like mag-adjust sila sa mga materials nga ginagamit nila para tuluan ang isa ka estudyante. So with teacher pa ni siya ha. Then assessment as learning kini kita mismo sa tong kaugalingon. Kita mismo ang monitor pud ta sa to ang learning abilities. So, naani sa tuang self. Kita, panabangan na to itong kaugalingon. And assessment of learning, or AOL, is kini na ang formal assessment nga ginabuhat nato. So, manto siya ang purpose of assessment. And the last, which is the evaluation. So, manamanta sa measurement, testing, and assessment. Now, we will go to evaluation. Evaluation is the process of judging the quality of performance or course of action. Okay, kini siya. Evaluation, di ba after mo siyag feedback, unsay kuan mo, siyag process of judging sa imong performance, feedback sa imong mga gipangbuhat. Like, i-evaluate ka sa imong teacher kung you need more improvement, you need more improvement para ana. So, muna siya ang evaluation, di ba? Collecting, it is data collected for an assessment task. So, according to Russell and Irashan 2012, evaluation is the process, sila ang giingon sa anang definition, is the process of judging the quality of a performance of a course action. This means that assessment data gathered by the teacher have to be interpreted in order to make sound decision about students and the teaching learning process. And evaluation is carried out both by the teacher and his or her students to uncover how the learning process is developing. So, syempre, pag naay feedback, so ikaw mismo, ikaw nag-istorya diya, so wala ka kabalugon sa mga ipangkuan, di ba? Wala ka kabalog na dito sa yup. So, feedback sa teacher, makatabang siya to improve the ability or the learnings and skills of our students. Next is the relationship among the measurement, test, and evaluation. There is a figure, which is figure 1, Venn diagram of measurement, test, and evaluation by Bachman, 1990. So, as you can see, ang evaluation, di ba na itulog ka circle? Na-explanation nga, ang area 1, or kanang number 1, is evaluation does not involve measurement or test. So, evaluation. So, kabalot ang evaluation is feedback siya, di ba? Feedback siya sa isa ka teacher, feedback siya sa isa ka teacher kung giunsa nimo pag gihandle or giunsa nimo pagdala, pag-deliver ang imuhang activity or giunsa nimo pag-perform ni ana, di ba? Wala na involve ang measurement o test. Kato siya feedback to para sa imuhang kaugalingon kung giunsa nimo siya pag-perform. Ang number 2 refers to non-test measures for evaluation. So, naay measurement ni tabo pero wala pa siya ning agi og test. Wala pa siya nag-involve og test. Gi-measure pa lang ka, di ba? Kakita man tang ang number 2 is wala siya nasulod sa circle sa test. And area 3 is where all three converge. So ang tulo gisagol na, which is ang test, measurement, and evaluation. Mao na siya ang involvement sa 3. Sila ng tulo ang nag-combine. Teacher-made test fall into this region. So, naanay test ang teacher, nag-measure na mo, so katotong measurement na sa inyong, like, mara na mag-ranking about sa inyong scores, and dito na-evaluate na sa teacher. So, muna siya, ang area 3 is where all the 3 converge. So, combine na sila. So, sa 4, pertains to non-evaluative test measures. So, get-test lang mo, pero nag-test mo, naargyapon siya measurement, so nasulod ramang yapon siya sa measurement, pero walay evaluation na hitabo. So, non-evaluative test measure. Non-evaluative, okay. Katong 2 kasi ganiha, is, wala mo nag-test, pero naay measurement and evaluation. Diba? Gi-measure mo, then gi-evaluate. Ang sa number 4 is naa siya test and measurement, pero wala siya gi-evaluate. Diba? Nasa kalayan ang 2 and 4. Ang sa number 5, finally, before that, ang sa area 4 is example of this. Amo na to siya. Ang area 4. So, finally, area 5 pertains to non-evaluative, non-test measures like assigning numerical codes to response in a research study. So, kini siya ang sa 5 is nabilong lang siya sa measurement. walay test na hitabo, walay evaluation na hitabo, ga-measure ra inyong teacher ani. Like, measurement ra ang nahitabo ani, like, anang ihalang bitang kaan, ang ihala bitang thoughts about ninyo. So, dito na ang 5. So, all of them is na ay kalahian. Except sa 3, kay ang 3 is a converge nilang tulo. So, that is the relationship among the measurement, test, and evaluation. So, next is the relevance of assessment. Assessment is needed for continued improvement and accountability in all aspect of education system. We all know nga ang assessment importante kaayo na siya, di ba? In order to make assessment work for everyone, students, teachers, and other players in the education system should have understanding of what assessment provide and how it is used to explain the dynamics of student learning. We the future educators, we are the bridge of our young generation for them to be successful in the future, diba? We need to assess them on their learnings, to improve their learnings, and also it's better to guide them for the better education system and to for better future. Guide them in a better path or where they can be successful in the future. And also, naadiri categorize the relevance of assessment ang students, teachers, parents, administrators, and program staff, and the policy makers. First is the students. Students, through varied learner-centered and constructive assessment tasks, students become actively engaged in the learning process because they take responsibility of their own learning. And the relevance of the assessment to students, it helps students to learn. When the students are able to see how they are doing in class, they are able to determine whether or not they understand the course materials. And assessment can also help motivate students. And the second is the teachers. Assessment informs instructional practice. It gives teachers information about the students' knowledge and performance base. It tells them how their students are currently doing. It's like giving feedback to your students. And the teachers are the observer of the students' improvement of their learning. And assessment results can reveal with teaching methods and approaches most effective. And through assessment also, the teacher could may balaan nila kung what type of materials ang ilang gamiton for their students to have improvement of learning. Next is the parents. Education is shared partnership. Following this tenet, parents should be involved in assessment of process. They are the valued source of assessment information and in the educational history and learning habits of their children, most especially for preschoolers who do not yet understand their developmental progress. And return, teachers should communicate vital information to parents concerning their child's and progress and learning. Kasi ang parents, sila ang first may encounter sa ilang students or sila ang most puyog sa mga estudyante labi na mga preschoolers. Kasi parents ang kabalo mo uyon sa ihang anak, kabalo ang mapasabot nga paunsa makuan kasi dili man ang preschoolers kabalo ta nga kanang kinahanglan sila guidance pa. So dili man maako sa teacher ang isa ka classroom para i-guide niya ang tanang estudyante. So tabang tungod sa parents matabangan pod ang mga teacher nga ma-improve pod ang learning silang mga anak. Kasi ang teacher dili niya kaya isa-isahon ang kuan. Ngano man napaso niya na siyang mga balay, di ba? So ang parents na ang bahala ana. So ang kaning teacher pod sila ang mohatag og information sa mga parents kung unsay angay nila buhaton para sa ilang mga anak. Kasi di man na malukop sa teacher tawon. Luoy na kayong teacher na di nakagwanta. Next is, additionally, assessment data can help identify needs of a children for appropriate intervention. So, ang parents, mohatag og feedback, ma'am, kaya dili kayo sa kong estudyante. Oh, sige, mother, nga niya tong buhaton next ha. So, maghimo sila, or mangita na po sila another way, kung paunsa nila ma-improve ang learning sa usa ka bata. Kasi, labi ng preschoolers, lisod pa kayo na sila og kuan, lisod pa kayo na sila i-develop. Kasi, napa sila ilang mind, magdula sa kun, nga bitaw, wala ilang mind sa mag-school o tarong, depende na guro siya sa disiplina sa mama. Pero di po itong disiplina nga bugbugo na po ninyo yung hangin ang mga anak para lang mo eskwela og tarong. Dapat tarungon po na to sila. Kanang istoryahan na to ba nga na kinahanglan ingon ani ma-learn ka ani mag-learn ka ni disiplina na siya sa parents. Dili mamugod pwede nga ang teacher na ang modisiplina na sa mga bata. Mo disiplina ang teacher pero light lang. So dito na siya sa parents nga sila na ang mutabang pod sa teacher nga i-develop pod ang knowledge sa ilahang mga anak. So next is administrators and program staff. Administrator and school planners use assessment to identify strengths and weaknesses of the program. They designate programs priorities, assess options, and lay down plans for improvement. Moreover, assessment data are used to decisions regarding to promotion or retention of students and arrangement of faculty development programs. So, gini po mga administrator and program staff, sila ang nagplano. Like, syempre, kinahanglan planuhan gid na. Labi ang estudyante is graduate na example og elementary. So, alangan mag-idiretso nila dito sa higher level, higher grade na, which is mga grade 8. So, dapat planuhan nila nga, iagi ni siya diri sa grade 7. So, inang i-assess nila po ba nga, ang mga estudyante dapat moagi ani nga level of grade level nga na before siya moadto didto. So, sila na pod ana kay aron diha nga kuan kasi level by level ma-recognize nimong strength og weakness sa isa ka estudyante. And also sa imong pong program, basta hindi ay wala na nagka dimao diha imong ang mga teaching ang gitudlo sa kuan kay wa na iya nag-cellphone ng mga teacher, pasagdan na lang ang mga estudyante. No, dapat kita mga teacher, kita gid ang mag-build og motivate mo build og mo motivate sa tong mga estudyante para na sila learnings pud nga makuha. Kasi we all know nga ang classroom is mingaw gid siya depende sa teacher nga ga-discuss po diha, basin po ga-discuss po diha, siya ra po nakasabot, wala po niya pangutanay ang mga estudyante nakasabot ra mo class or unsa ba nga na, di ba? So ang mga kuan po na administrators and program staff or school planners, sila ang mo plano kung unsay angay buhaton para pod mo improve ang ilahang mo develop ang ilahang programs ilahang sa promotion bitan la sa schools, like kana bitang mo develop ang teaching programs nila or ilahang teaching process. And also through assessment of our administrators and program staff, at least na ay manindot ang process sa education sa mga estudyante. Next is the policy makers. Assessment provides information about students' achievements, which in turn reflect the quality of education being provided by the school. With this information, government agencies can set modified standards, reward or sanction schools to direct educational resources. Next is the policy makers. So, assessment provides information about students' achievements, which in turn reflect the quality of education being provided by the school. With this information, government agencies can set or modify standards, reward or sanction schools and directed educational resources. So another common purpose of assessment is the policymakers formulate judgments about the quality and effectiveness of educational programs and institutions. Once again, assessment plays a vital role in K-12 program. Diba? Grabe jud kinahanglan jud kay nato ang assessment, because without assessment we are not going to have a improvement in our own learnings. And that would be all. Once again, I am Aisa Pangolima, the reporter of Chapter 1. Thank you.